Jamie has been 8 months clean from internet addiction and social media. He spent the last 8 years trying and failing to curb his internet usage and free himself from the addictive curse to scroll. For the last 8 months, he's been clean from YouTube, social media, and the news. In this video, Jamie will explain his story and the exact steps he took to breaking the cycle and changing his life for the better. Alright, so we're here with Jamie. Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm in my early 30s. I live in the UK. I live in Scotland in the UK. Um, I work. I've worked for the past few years as a software developer, and I've been clean from using the internet addictively for the past probably 8 months now. And it's something I've been trying to do for probably the past, like, where are we, 22? So probably the past, say, like 13 years or something like that. And so yeah, that's where I'm at.
So tell us a little bit about your childhood and when the first time you ever used one of these addictive devices was.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, to be perfectly honest, like, so I'm, about midway in the millennial age. So my first time using the computer it would have always been in like communal settings at the beginning, like there was the computer room at school, or the like library with computers, which is where everyone would like sort of watch someone use the computer because there was only like two or three, you know what I mean? So it was probably quite different to it is now. So it's like very much a communal experience. And I guess later we'd get dial up in the house, probably when I was like, I don't know, 12. And then maybe when I was 13, we'd got broadband or something like that. This is in I guess the early 2000s. But to be honest, the internet was never really a problem with me until I left school to go to university. Um, that was in the late aughts, and I discovered Reddit, which was not a great thing at all. I was doing a very hard course at university, and yeah, it didn't go too well.
So a lot of people were too young to have experienced that. Can you explain it for them? Was it a novelty? How was it like back then?
The internet itself. Yeah. So I guess there was this sense. It wasn't like now in that there weren't large platforms that people congregate on, like Insta or TikTok or Facebook or whatever. It was lots of smaller forums, really almost like micro hobby forums. Like someone might make a site about, I don't know, I remember being on like these tiny websites where people would obsess about like building paper airplanes or building like model trebuchets and stuff, and they'd all have their own tiny forums. And the internet was like a place where you would like discover you would really have to like explore and discover. And I to be perfectly honest, like when I was at school, at like high school, I wasn't I used it as much as anyone, but yeah, the Facebook, it didn't even have Messenger back then. You would literally write on people's walls as a way to message with them. So yeah, it was just a whole different place, I guess.
It was a lot more organic, you would say, back then, right? And
Yeah, I would probably say. And in terms of, there wasn't so much the algorithmic sorting of content. For example, the most you'd see is like on a news site, you'd probably have the top read stories of the day. You wouldn't have like everything based on a personalized feed for you. So there was probably a much better chance, or like your early Twitter or early Facebook timeline was chronological. So there was there was a lot less sorting of information based on what they think you want to see.
Exactly. So now you've gone on from high school, you've entered university, and it's your first time having experience with devices. What was your first experience that you can remember from that time?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not gonna. So I just just as a just to say, like, I dropped out of my after my first year of university, and I'm not going to just blame the internet because it was I probably wasn't quite ready. It was a lot of just like drinking and that kind of thing, but it really didn't help having a laptop that I was meant to be working on, and having newly discovered Reddit, and I probably wasted so many hours doing that. So yeah, that wasn't great. Um,
So what was Reddit like back then, the first time you discovered it?
I mean, so we're talking like late aughts, early 2010s. I mean, what was around then? I mean, it's a bit cringy to think, but probably like rage comics and cringe content, and public outrage, all the sorts of stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't actually use Reddit all that much anymore, so it's kind of hard for me to compare. But it
Mm.
was the beginning of memes as a semi-mainstream thing. I remember in that time, people didn't even know, like someone who wasn't a Reddit user, like a complete normie, wouldn't even know the word meme, which is kind of really weird to think now, given that every platform is just packed with memes, even if you're an ultra normie. So yeah, it was probably about that time, like the explosion of memes and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So how did it impact you with your studying in university? Did you notice you were spending way too much time entertaining yourself instead of studying? Could you balance the two?
Oh no, definitely not. So, I remember even then knowing that the internet use was a problem. Like I remember there was a Windows program called Cold Turkey, because I didn't have a smartphone then. So there was a Windows program, I think it still exists, called Cold Turkey. I remember trying to install that and then realizing how sort of easily it could be bypassed. And yeah, it sucked, and I think I knew then that this wasn't great, and this was going to be a bit of a problem. Um, so I dropped out, and I went to community college for the next 4 years. And I was living with a flatmate then, and that was probably like peak, just like wasting those 4 years on the internet. I'd say that was a lot of like torrenting, playing Counter Strike. Counter Strike Global Offensive came out then, so we played a lot of that. Just like heaps of Reddit, heaps of browsing forums, all of that kind of thing. In those 4 years, I got my first smartphone. It was like a Nexus
Mhm.
4.
So when you were
Yeah.
when you were gaming, how many hours did you put into the game Counter-Strike or
Oh
any of the
man,
games you play?
probably. I mean, probably quite a lot. Probably every day, because I was only really in college for a couple of, like, maybe 2.5 days a week or something like that, and the
Mhm.
rest was just working a little bit just to make enough money to live. But um, I mean, I'd probably game like maybe 3 or 4 hours a day. Not dying in my seat, unable to move, but a lot more than is probably healthy, and just stuck on the internet, stuck on Reddit. I remember at that time towards the end of that time, I did delete my original Reddit account, and I thought that was like a really big deal. I was like, oh man, deleting all of this karma and all of these nonsense comments. And I remember having done that, I'd find myself going to the fridge, like my body is like, you've done what to me? Like, I need something to check. And I remember just going to the fridge, and I'd find myself in front of the fridge like over and over and over again, because my brain was just like looking for something to fill the gap left by
Mhm.
this sort of
Mm.
cold turkey withdrawal. Um yeah, and so I would say, like, there's definitely a physical um a physical withdrawal that you get, even if it's just from something like the internet. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, but of course, life went on. I moved to a new city at that point, so that was pretty good.
So
This
what
was
year
like,
is this? Can you tell the
so
people what
we're
year?
in like 2015 ish thereabout.
Mhm.
Um, So I'd been living in a sort of small city, and I moved to the capital city, which was super exciting. I was like, oh man, I'd broke up with my girlfriend then, so I was like sort of living a sociable life. And I remember like looking at my desktop PC in my room and being like, ah, oh, thank God those years are over. I thought, wow, I've really broken the back of this thing. I was, just going out of my way to go to meetups, groups, and like trying to do online dating and all of that kind of thing. I had a new job which I liked, so I really thought, this is me done with that period of life that I was sort of stuck on the internet. And I guess for me that kind of that all began to wane off this new sociable me, and I found that the internet was like very quickly there to pick up the pieces of where I was at. And I found, yeah, so I guess like I had a new girlfriend at this point, but she lived overseas. So I was finding myself like I was finding myself, like it's the weekend, I'm still in bed, and it's like halfway through the afternoon. I'm sat on my phone. I'm starving because I've literally not even left my bed to go, make some lunch or breakfast. I'm bursting for a piss because I've not even got up to go to the loo. Like, that was the kind of like not super not super great. But for me, like my usage, like if you'd have asked any of my friends or colleagues, they would definitely not have, I mean, to anyone who like knew me, they would just think I was completely normal. And I was for the most part, but what I was really finding is I really wanted off this thing. Like I wanted off Reddit. I didn't want anything to do with this, and I just couldn't. And so for me, like this began my absolute mission. I was like, nah, this is absolute bullshit. I'm gonna do, everything I can to quit, sort of thing.
So what were
Yeah.
some of the negative effects you were feeling from using so
Yeah,
much?
sure. So these are kind of maybe a bit subtle, but these were things that I was really getting pretty like worried about myself. Like the big one was like I'd pretty much lost my ability to read a novel or read a book. I would begin to read, and then I would just feel the call of my phone so strongly that I mean, I wouldn't really be able to resist, which is, awful. I mean, um, I realized like in the past, sort of however many years since I'd gone to university, I'd barely been able to reflect on my thoughts or daydreamed or just experienced boredom. I just wasn't able to sit with myself and my own thoughts without thinking of using, like grabbing my phone. Like my phone would be the last thing I would see at night while my eyelids are like getting propped open, and the first thing I'd pick up in the morning. So I was like, this isn't what humanity is meant to be about, right? This isn't the human experience to just numb yourself with a smartphone screen. I wasn't even able to watch like a movie really by the sort of late 2010s. I was I don't know if this affected me, but I was definitely worried about the idea that everything I was consuming was informing my thoughts, and the things I was consuming were shown to me often through algorithms. And I don't know whether that actually had an effect on me, but it's not nice to think that your thoughts are being shaped by a black box on a server somewhere. I guess if you're reading a lot of comments online every day, those comments, everyone can, I'm sure, agree that the internet isn't the best place to discuss anything really. It's not the most healthy place. I think ideas are definitely discussed best face to face. And, if you're consuming heaps of discourse that's just been absolutely stripped of any sense of humanity, then I guess that's probably not the most positive thing in anyone's life. And I guess I'm at the point, I was looking sort of down the barrel of a gun at 30, which I know it might be a wee way away from some people that are listening, but it feels like quite a big age in your life. You're thinking, God, maybe it won't be too long until I'm a father, maybe. And like absolutely no judgment to anyone that does this, but I'd be like on the train, and I'd be on a long train journey, and I'd see someone with their kid, and the parents just sat on their phone, and the kids desperate for some sort of parental attention. And again, like no judgment to them, but I certainly didn't want to be that person, and I really, really, really wanted to be done with it before I had kids. Um, and so maybe I can talk a bit about what measures I tried. um, that
Exactly what I was gonna ask. Yeah.
oh, sorry.
What
For you
measures did you
to
try to get off? Yeah.
yeah. So the first thing I tried. There are, or there were a couple of years ago. They're probably a bit better now. Some dumb phones that do technically have things like WhatsApp. Like there's like a couple of Nokias that came out like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I tried one, and I was like, oh, maybe this will be it. But for me, the friction of using it was just too high. It is like really, really, it was just a bit too much for me. Like, it is absolutely awful to type anything on WhatsApp on that keyboard, and it's just you can't really use any smartphone features on it, obviously. So that was a bit too much. Like, that wasn't sustainable for me. I ditched that. Um, the next thing I tried was I bought a 10-inch tablet, and I was like, it had a SIM slot, and I put my SIM in it. I was like, right, I'll use a tablet as a phone, because
Mm.
it's really embarrassing. No,
Yeah,
you're
that's
not
what I
the
was thinking
person.
to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not the person in a bar or whatever who's taking out their 10-inch tablet to, like, check something, or whatever. But that didn't really work. So I basically just ended up using this like giant ass phone all the time. And like taking, oh, it would be the most embarrassing thing if I didn't have my Bluetooth headphones, and I just take a call on it. And I'm like, if I was ever with my girlfriend, she'd be so embarrassed. This like guy with this 10-inch tablet like pressed against his head. So yeah, that didn't really work. And so I guess I tried like willpower, just like over and over again, and that was just like failing repeatedly. And I guess like anyone who has tried to quit this thing will presumably, if they've been serious about it, have experienced this. You want with all the will in the world to just get back to some sense of a normal life, get to bed on time, um, and not have that feeling where you're up at 2 a.m. and you're like, for like, fuck's sake, like, I've ruined another bedtime.
Mm.
I might as well just keep scrolling onwards, because fuck it, it's fucked now. And you wake up in the morning and you're like, I swear I'm so tired. I swear tonight I'm just gonna have a nice early night. And then the cycle just goes on and on and on. But yeah, so and also this time, like, I was listening to quite a few gambling addiction podcasts, and reading a few books on that topic. Like, I felt they were the closest thing to to sort of speaking to me on the topic. Like, so that kind of thing helped. Um, and the final thing I wanted to say, just on like reasons for quitting, um, and that was probably actually, you can cut this out. I'll talk about this later when I talk about the differences that I'm feeling now
No, no,
that I've.
it's fine. It's fine. Explain.
Oh, no, it's cool. So one thing I was going to say, and like, this is something that is like really changed since I've quit, is um when I was constantly stuck to my smartphone, what I'd find is I was Googling or looking up the sort of the slightest question that came into my head. I'd maybe want to research buying something, or I'd want to research like what is the capital of whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
I'd constantly be looking up these, and the sorts of results you get on Google for those types of questions when you're looking up information. I mean, there's this sort of most surface level, sort of shallow knowledge that you could ever get on a subject, but it's scratching that itch for that your brain has for meaning, for yeah, like a curiosity that your brain has, and you're constantly pacifying that curiosity. So it's always just like it's satisfied, but on this really shallow way. And what I've found now that I've quit is that like that curiosity has come back like super strong. But I can talk about more of
Mm.
the
So
differences
let's
later.
get into that. You tried and tried and tried and didn't succeed, but finally you tried and it worked. What was the difference
Yeah.
between the times you failed and when it worked? And also,
Okay.
what are you feeling? What are you feeling now that you've gotten off of it?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll break those questions down to two because there's a bit. So I had a rock bottom. Um, I moved to a new city in the lockdown for what I thought was my dream job, and this city was absolutely this was a an absolute dive of a city, absolute godless place. And it's the lockdown. I can't leave my apartment. I don't know anyone there. It's winter. Um, it's just like absolute concrete jungle. I'm used to being able to walk out my house and there's like trees, and I can feel somewhat rejuvenated. But yeah, I'd leave my house there, and it's just street upon street of houses. And my job was awful. I hated it. I was using the internet all of the time. Like I was gaming. I was playing Counter Strike. I was playing uh, Age of Empires 2. If I wasn't on the tablet, I was on the phone. If I wasn't on the phone, I was on the computer. If I wasn't on the computer, I'd be like on the computer for work. Um, so I wasn't exercising. It was just an awful combination of things, and the result of that was I was super depressed, and
Mm.
my like I phys like my hands, um I I got some kind of like insane repetitive strain injury in my hands from doing all of that, and my hands would just burn. I couldn't like really open a doorknob or use a screwdriver or like chop
Mm.
my dinner. It was just like really fucked situation. And that was like my absolute rock bottom. And I was like, man, like my body is saying like this is just enough. Like you need to change. Um, and so I had to quit my job. I had to move home to my parents, who kindly have let me move into their spare room, which has been a bit of an experience. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Mhm.
And most importantly, I started going to meetings of Internet and Technology Addicts Anonymous on Zoom, which is a 12-step program. And I can talk a bit about that in a minute.
Mhm.
And so the first meeting I went to was an absolute revelation. Just I had no idea when I joined that Zoom meeting. I had absolutely no idea what sorts of what's the group of faces that I'm going to see staring back at me when I join this meeting. Like what's it going to be like? I had absolutely no idea. But it was the the best thing ever, that first meeting. Just realizing that there's like heaps of people from all over the world, all sorts of ages, like men and women who trying to are in exactly the same place, just trying to beat this addiction and finding it bloody hard. And just hearing from them was the like so powerful. And I was like, oh man, this is the good shit. This is like um this is what's gonna do it for me. And I started going to meetings like every day. There's like heaps of meetings in all different times. I can maybe talk a bit about what
Mm.
their program is like, or how it works, kind of thing.
Before that
Yeah,
though, what have you noticed that's changed? Are you able to focus more now? Are you able to think better now?
yeah. So I would say, oh man, the biggest change is that I am finally able to like think deeply. It firstly, the changes took about 3 months of sobriety, right? And in those three
Mm.
months, I relapsed like heaps. Like, of course I did. Like, it was like super hard. It's like, yeah, but I was like so serious to have the goal of like completely quitting. And when you just have to believe, you have to believe that the urges will fade. Because at the beginning, if you are like an actual internet addict, like probably a lot of people are, the urges to keep using are so strong. And you just have to take it day by day and know that it will get better. And so yeah, I can like I have the ability to think deeply in a way that I just really haven't for years. I can finish a book. I smash like heaps of books. Um, I I also quit the news, so that's been really good. Like I feel like so much more peaceful in that regard. Um, I've had lots of time to focus on on just like my body and getting my body just like back in good working order as best I can, like heaps of stretching, heaps of yoga and stuff like that, which has been really good.
Mm.
Um, I think I've got better relations with like my girlfriend, I would say. And
Did you have
yeah,
brain fog before? Did you have any brain fog?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, like, I guess when you're using, you're constantly like, there's probably always a tiny part of your brain that's sort of thinking about the internet, thinking about, gaming or, but do you mean like, did I have brain fog when I was like the decade before when I was using?
Yeah, when you would use it for a long time, did you have any difficulty remembering things, difficulty focusing?
Not so much, but and I think focusing in that, like, I was very easily distracted. That was
Mm.
probably it more than an actual like feeling like I couldn't really, do like hard, whatever maths or something like that. But yeah, like definitely just that, like, I think it makes you super distracted. I think especially if anyone has like ADHD or ADD or anything like that. I think the combination of that and internet or phone addiction is like really not good news. But yeah, so that's been the main the main differences.
And how long have you been clean now, so that people know how long have you been clean?
It's been like 8 months now.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll talk a bit about how the process of like this sort of program at ITAA, what kind of roughly what it's like.
Explain.
Yeah. So I guess the most important thing is that sobriety isn't defined. Like, for example, if you go to AA, if you go to Alcoholics Anonymous or GA, Gamblers Anonymous, it's your sobriety is pretty easy. You don't drink alcohol or you don't gamble. But with the internet, it's a bit trickier because, of course, we all have to use the internet for our work. Maybe you have to do, online banking or your grocery order, or I don't know. But of course, it's reasonable that we do need to use the internet. But you define your own sobriety. So it's a bit like Overeaters Anonymous or something like that, in that you have to eat, but you have issues with the amount of food or the types of food that you eat. And
Mhm.
so you define, it's one of the first things you do when you join ITAA is you like draft what sobriety looks like to you. So if you're someone that like games, it might be just like no gaming. I'm only allowed to, I only want to use like these websites for an hour a day or something, or I don't want to read any manga, comics, or whatever is the problem for you. Um, for me, like my sobriety now is no social media, no browsing for pleasure, like minimal messaging use, absolutely like minimal email checking if I can, and then just the browsing I need to do for work, which I don't find in any way addictive. Um, so yeah, that's what it looks like for me, and no news or Reddit.
So what do you
Um,
do now to fill up all of that newfound time?
um, man, yeah, I read quite a bit. Um, I I'm not gonna say like I live like a monk. Like I listen to quite a lot of podcasts every day, like quite a few hours, which I don't know if that is good. Like I think it's a lot better than interacting with the internet.
Mhm.
It's still not being able to just enjoy your own company for hours at a time, which I appreciate. But for me, listening if listening to podcasts is like what I is my like cope, then that's fine. Like I I would definitely trade that for use of the internet. Um and yeah, and I would also say like some advice I might have that helped me is um of course, like I think blocker apps for the phone and the computer, they can be useful in a way. Um, what I found is like, say at the beginning when I was like really serious about quitting, I'd make all these rules like, I can use, whatever social media for like this between, these hours, or like, 10 minutes every other hour or something like that. And I just found that the brain is very devious, and your addict brain really wants to use very hard, and it'll find wiggle room. It'll find loopholes in your sort of rules. And so that wasn't so successful. I'd always find I'd just sort of slip back. I'd think, oh no, I do really just like need to check this, and I'd slip back. So what I found quite useful is use use blocker apps. Of course, we can uninstall blocker apps. Like they're not a solution in themselves, but it's a lot easier being able to say like the only thing that I need to do every day is just get through the day and not uninstall my blocker app. And that's just like one rule that you have to follow. So it's like doing that, like that rule is like a lot easier than than following the rules using your own willpower, I'd say.
So
Um,
let's say, yeah, especially with the blocker apps, you can just easily turn them off, right? So,
yeah,
but they
yeah.
can be very useful in connection with other things and other strategies. But I have another question for you. What
Mm.
would you say today to the 20-something-year-old Jamie who was addicted to the internet, and what are three concrete steps you would give him today to be able to change his life and get off, assuming it's 2022 at the time?
Mm. Okay. I would say that this addiction is very strong, and I think probably stronger than most people realize, and that the opposite of addiction is connection, and don't underestimate the strength or the power that you can gain from face to face contact with a group of people trying to achieve the same thing. Like, that is powerful. As far as I'm aware, the No Surf subreddit is the only community online dedicated to the sort of forum online dedicated to quitting the internet, and I I I would browse there quite a lot. I wouldn't get anything near as much sort of mental, how do you say, like support as I would going to like meet ITA meetings. So I would say like do the meetings if you're serious. Do the meetings because um, they make a super big difference.
And
I
we're
would
gonna
say
link
if
all those meetings in the description.
Yeah, 100%. Like if if your internet use is like more of a habit and you've not tried, if you've not really tried and it's maybe just something you do too much, then like maybe just like blocker apps or some willpower maybe will help. But if you're the kind of person that is serious about this and has tried over and over again and failed, and you're despairing because they don't tell you at school that sometimes your willpower just is not enough to achieve something, then think about the meetings anyway. Give them a shout. Give them a shot. But everyone I've met there has been the kindest person, and it's not a company or anything like that. It's just a group of it's just an organization, I guess. And I would say, like, for me at the time, I would say if I was looking back, I'd say all things take time. Like maybe I just wasn't ready at that time, or maybe I didn't know the tools that would help me. Maybe if I'd have heard an interview like this, it might have helped. But back then, I don't think the no surf subreddit existed. I didn't find anyone or hear about anyone else trying to do this. And at least, like for example, your YouTube channel, you know, that's a great thing for people to be able to access. It's a great resource. I think a lot more people now are talking about it, so that's great. Um, but if there's anyone that's listening, like you can do this, like reach out to people. Um, I think the other thing that I would think about for anyone that's listening is like it may well be that the internet for you is acting like a giant cope. Like if you're unhappy about something in your life, if there's something maybe from your past that's sitting with you, you know, you might be using the internet as a bit of an escape. Um, and I would say that it's going to be hard. The internet for you might be acting something like an emotional load bearing wall. Like you can't just take that wall away and expect expect to just be the same. So be ready for if you're quitting, like make sure you've got enough, people or things in your life that are going to be able to step in once you take the internet away to do some of the work that the internet is doing for you now. If that's reading, if that's a hobby, or if that's like trying to meet up with other people IRL, if there's meetup groups next to you, near you in your area, whatever. But yeah, be ready for that, because if you have nothing, you're gonna on day one you're gonna say, well, this is shit. Like I don't mind the internet, at least it's better than like absolutely zero. So
It's a
um
numbing agent, right?
yeah.
It numbs you from reality. I think a lot of people use it for that purpose.
Yeah, I would completely agree, especially with the pandemic. Like I could only imagine if I were a younger, like a teenager, maybe when I see posts on the no surf subreddit and it's like, you know, I I can't quit this. I use it so much. Like I want to, it makes me want to kill myself. Or, I've my time tracker on my phone is showing like 20 hours of TikTok today. My heart goes out. Like it makes me feel. Like I often reach out to those people. And give them my phone number. I'm like, just call me if you need. Like I feel awful about it. So yeah, there's help there, and you can do it even if your friends don't understand or your parents don't understand or whatever. Like you can do it. Yeah.
Mm. Very,
Mm.
very. It's been very enlightening, and I think you gave people some really great advice. And it's honestly amazing how people across the world all have very similar experiences, like the exact steps you're explaining of how you got off, even the things you were noticing outside, how people were addicted to devices, and how you wanted to change that. These are all things I've experienced myself, and we live half the globe apart. So
Mm.
it's just very interesting how this affects so many people, and I think you gave the example of the obesity problem that people have, and maybe people are addicted to alcohol. But at least with that, there's physical differences. Like you can see when somebody has an eating problem, you can tell when somebody has a alcohol addiction. But with the internet addiction, it's so normalized, and so many people are suffering from it that it's not. And to be honest, this is the first time, and the no surf community was the first time where I realized that there were other people trying to change and better themselves and get rid of this, all with the exact same experiences. Isn't that amazing?
Mm. Yeah, it's powerful, man. Like totally, and like honestly, like props to you for this YouTube channel, because I think it's good. Like more stuff like this needs to happen. Yeah, just people just need to connect. It's the connection that is the opposite of addiction. Like I really believe that.
Connection is the opposite of addiction. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave the people with?
No, I will drop a I'll give you a burner email. I'll message you a burner email to put in the notes, in the, what do they call them on YouTube?
That's so
The
great. You forgot.
description. Yeah, I'm such a such a boomer, right? In the description. If anyone wants to reach out, like just email me. If you want to chat, just email me. I'll give you my number. I like my hands are still pretty messed up, so I don't type a lot, but I'll give you my WhatsApp or my Signal, and we can have a chat. No problem. Like if just email me, I've got heaps of time, so don't worry.
If there's anyone listening to this out there who made it to this point, this is your message to change and really reflect on what Jamie discussed with us today and really try some of the advice he gave us. Thanks for listening, guys, and always remember, don't surf.